My name is Dallas. I'm from Just Another Channel. Thank you for joining us. Today I have my cousin. His name is Tim Solberg. He runs another true crime channel called True Crime. And today we are wanting to welcome you to our third episode on TDS Crime Podcast. I'm going to let Tim take over and introduce himself and his channel. And I would just like to thank everyone.
Just like Dallas said, I run True Crime, and that's True Crime with a K, a little bit different. As the folks that have been with me for a while, you see I've moved to a different room. I moved all my stuff into the master bedroom so we could get all three dogs into the picture. Right now you only see two because the crime-fighting Doberman is at my feet, but at some point I'm sure you're going to see him get up on the bed. I'm pretty excited today. And not excited, happy, but just excited because we're going to be talking about my hometown and some folks that went missing recently. Both Dallas and I have been doing a lot of research on this one, and it should be pretty interesting. So if you're in chat, if you've done any of the research or you're from Dawson, we'd love to hear from you folks. Definitely leave a comment down below. And of course, as always, got to throw the shout out to No Context. You're always here supporting. I love that support, whether it's in the streams, the videos, even the forum on YouTube. You're always there supporting. So we really appreciate that. But on that note, Dallas, I kind of wanted to start with you this week on some of the research that you've done. You're not from Dawson Creek, so this was a little foreign to you, but what did you find throughout your research before we jump into the three missing? And what's kind of your take or your from far away look at Dawson Creek?
Dawson Creek, honestly, I never thought of it anything like this. Like every time, well, I've been searching it this week, and every time I pull something up, there's either a shooting, there's someone missing, and it's like every month there's something. I thought I used to drive up there for work to go to Fort St. John and Chetwynd area. And we would drive through Dawson Creek, and cute town. Like I've never ever partied there, never stayed there a long time. We would just pretty much drive through. Never thought that there was anything awful happening there, but it's worse than Edmonton. So I'm just like kind of blown away, especially for it having a population of like 13,000 people, very small. It'd be frightening, honestly. Like you wouldn't know what was going to happen down the road from you with what's going on in that town. Like it's small, and literally there's a shooting 2 days ago just at a motel at 2 a.m, and they're still looking for the suspects. So there's 3 people that they're looking for. 2 weeks prior to that, there was a shooting. I believe somebody had passed away or got hospitalized in Vancouver. What was another one? Oh, November 6th, there was a shooting. There was also a shootout where somebody unfortunately had taken his own life. He was unfortunately a part of that lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just kind of every article that I read, it's not good. It's nothing positive. People are really scared of what's happening there. Obviously, there's some outreach programs that are there for missing Indigenous women and girls that are getting involved. The family center there is getting involved with the sheriff's department, trying to find out what can they do. The mayor's actively involved to hopefully try to keep that town safe. But it's kind of a win-lose battle, like a lose-lose battle at the moment with them. So it's sad.
Yeah. Well, and you hit a lot of things on the head that growing up there for me, there was a lot of things that were going on. First thing I do have to throw out, the mayor's really good. I've known the mayor almost all my life, to be honest with you. The first concert I ever went to was with him in Edmonton back in '97 for Metallica. So if I just age myself, is what it is. But he's got a plate full of stuff that he's got to deal with for sure. I'll give a little background and texture around what my experience was like in Dawson Creek, and then we really want to focus in on the 3 people that have disappeared, and there's a lot more going on. But first and foremost, you sent me an article that I know you're going to talk about a little bit, just of people that might know something, might be afraid to come forward. To put it in perspective, this is a town of 13,000. When I was living there was 10,000. Almost everybody knows everybody, and at some level everybody knows what's going on, but might not know the details, right? So there's a lot of rumors that fly in those towns. Dawson Creek specifically, because there's a lot of oil and gas there. You've got forestry there, a lot of hardworking people. There's a lot of money flowing through there, trucking, all sorts of stuff, and not a lot of stuff to do. So drugs become an issue, right? Night partying or nightclubs are going to be frequented quite a bit. You're going to see a lot of house parties. Back in my day, we'd all go up to Radar Lake or John Deere Road, or even the Bear Mountain Flats, and we'd spend a lot of time partying out there, Poose River, places like that. And although I saw a lot of stuff growing up, back then there wasn't shootings, there wasn't murder, there was still a lot of drugs, there was a lot of fighting. Like I remember one night at Radar, there was 17 fights. Which, when I moved to the States, that wasn't a normal thing. I just thought that's what people did, right? So that was something kind of new to me, but 17 in one night. I don't think I've seen 17 fights in my life since I've moved from Dawson Creek. I would also say about the people of Dawson, there was definitely a lot of bad stuff that happened, but there was a lot of good people. Like I met some of the best people of my life in Dawson Creek. A lot of my friends are pure, right at the heart. And there's a lot of great people in Dawson. So it's kind of got that dynamic, right? Where you're kind of running with the crowd. I mean, I used to fight a lot as a kid. I don't see myself as a bad person. A lot of my friends fought. I don't see them as bad people. But again, there was no murders. There was no shootings. There was no robberies, things that you're seeing today. And what kind of struck me about this case, Dallas, is I did a video about the Highway of Tears, and it really focused in on, the missing Indigenous folks, right? Mostly women, mostly female. And I said in that video, I said, I think this could extend to Dawson Creek. I know it's not part of that corridor, but if you look at like Dawson Creek, Prince George, Fort St. John, all those areas there, this is a continuing pandemic that's happening that is just not being solved, and it's not getting enough attention. And for me, where it really hit home was when Renee went missing, because that was somebody that I knew as a youngster. Now, we weren't friends, right? Like she didn't come over to my house or anything like that, but through my friends, right, because she was a little bit younger, I knew who she was. I saw her quite frequently. And then when it popped up that she disappeared, I was like, wow, this is getting real. And this has been happening for quite some time. So the three people that we're talking about today, that we're going to focus in on is Renee Supernant, Darylyn Supernant, and Cole Hosack. So I think let's just start with Cole, and what's your take, and what have you researched and heard about this so far?
Unfortunately, like I didn't go on Facebook. I've been meaning to go check his mom's page out, obviously on Facebook. Just what I know is like, what, unfortunately, he was just a guy wanting to come to Alberta, going to go to work, and he just was with a friend, who knew people from Dawson Creek. He wasn't even there. Like he knows nobody there other than the friends that he was with. And then you go out for New Year's to celebrate, and then you're never seen again. But
Huh.
I was looking up at this pub. Obviously, it's only open 2 days a week. The bar that he was at, the Lone Star. Is
Yeah.
that right? I'm
Yeah.
sorry. So, I'm not too sure. I didn't really dig into this bar, but open 2 days a week. No one's coming forward if there was any fights. There's no nothing. Like, who were you with? And that's the odd thing. What, what is his friend saying? Like, how can you just go to a bar and then all of a sudden now you're reported missing the next morning? Like, where are your friends? Like, I guess that's the only question that I have. Like, how can somebody lose you and not come forward or say, hey, this was happening outside this bar, there's a fight or whatever it might be, we're having some problems in the bar. Why is nobody saying anything about this guy who has no attachments to Dawson Creek?
Yeah, and then you
So
have like his mom, Julie, who you'd brought up. I mean, she's a huge advocate, as any parent would be, but she posts every day. She's
I
asking questions. She's not getting anything back, and that's Julie Hosack. Um,
Yeah.
I think he was at Brown's Social House as well. But basically, I mean, you hit it in the nutshell. He comes through. He's picking somebody up for work. They decide to go out. It looks like he got into some sort of altercation, and then ends up disappearing, right? And what's tough about that is many different things could happen. And in Dawson Creek, and I'm pulling it up on my screen. Human remains were found last week, and Julie was quick to come out. And I don't know Julie. I'm calling her by her first name, but Julie Hosack came out and said, "Hey, that is not Cole." So good news there is there's still hope for Julie Hosack. But that just says, hey, there's another case out there that's unsolved that maybe will be solved today. But to your point, he goes out and then just disappears, like, without a trace. What is his friend saying? RCMP's obviously staying really tight-lipped, and you see that in the story. And then, in a small town like that, even if people do know, and I'm not saying people do know, but even if people do know, I mean, it's a risk to come out and say something because they're going to know you're the one that said something.
Especially for how small it is. It's like, there's so much crime.
Yeah.
I wouldn't come forward if I had to live there. If I had to live there and I would have to deal with the repercussions of even mentioning something, because no offense, like, people talk, you know, this has probably been going around for, well, obviously months. But what's unfortunate is that there is no answers. Like, no one does want to come forward. And his mom is left wondering, like, I could never imagine how that feels. Like, I would crumble every day not knowing where my child is and how come. Like, I would be banging doors. Right?
Yeah.
But at the
No.
same time, like, how come there isn't more? Like, because when you do search it, there's not much more coming from the police. It's very vague. It's like, okay, he went to a club, 11 o'clock, 11:30. It hasn't really been seen since
Yeah.
New Year's Eve.
Well, and what's crazy
And it's
about that, yeah, it is. It really is unfortunate. And the friends got to know something, I would think. Now, I mean, it is very possible because I spent a lot of time, especially in my younger years, around their age when I was partying, and sometimes you get out of hand, especially at that time of year, and there is a possibility that his friend was very intoxicated and maybe took a cab home or another friend brought him home or whatever the case is. But even from like Julie Hosack's perspective, we haven't heard that she's had any conversations with the friend that could help or not help, right? And again, the RCMP being tight-lipped, and it's not for the public to know, and I understand that, but it's still pretty scary for the residents there to say, like, hey, is there a risk if I go out at night or if I go with my friends or anything like that, right? And this one is very, I don't know. It has that Brian Schaefer feeling from Ohio, the case that we're doing next week. But there was another case, and I'm trying to remember his name. It was Corey. It was the one that in Spirit River. I did a video on it as well, and I'm trying to remember his name. I can see his face, but basically just disappeared after an altercation of being at the bar at night. Went to the gas station and then disappears. And for anybody that lives in the U.S., just to give you some perspective, there's a lot of land mass out there, right? Like, it's surrounded by what's called Bear Mountain. The closest city is 6 to 6.5 hour drive away. If you take Grand Prairie out of that, but Grand Prairie, I don't really, it's on the verge of being a city, but it's not like an Edmonton. So there's a lot of places where people can disappear. And him not knowing where he's at, I mean, it's possible that maybe something bad didn't happen, but the way that everything is pointing right now is that something happened to him and somebody knows something out there. And being so close to the other two folks disappearing, which we'll get to in a little bit, this scares me.
Well, yeah, like, if you can't go out, especially in that small town, and there could be a risk. Like, did you read about those two girls that were in the bathroom or went to that pub and it's like, oh yeah, we didn't go missing?
Yes, yes, that was a Twitter storm.
Yeah. So
Rightfully
I
so.
read that. I'm like, how ballsy. And actually, probably talk about that when we start talking about the girls, the cousins that are missing, because it was mentioned in that article that I had read how disturbing some of the comments were. But I'm like, back to Cole, like, it's just so awful. Like, you just don't ever think like, hey, this is going to be my last night. You know what I mean? Like, you want to go out, you want to go have fun. You're in a new town. You don't think nothing of it. You don't think, especially a small town, nothing's going to happen to me in a small town.
Yeah,
Like, that's my logic. I'm like, what happens here?
yeah.
Like, nobody lives here, but it's a very dark place. Like I would not want to go there. I would not want to even stay there. And I know like um friends go up to Fort St. John for work and stuff and they party there. And obviously, like you said, there's drugs and stuff. And yeah, I could stay far away from there. Like I'm good.
I would like to clarify one thing because I didn't I missed this when I was reading this earlier, but there was some sort of fight on the dance floor and later a verbal altercation in the parking lot while Cole was having a smoke, said Hosack. Cole's friend drove a person home after midnight, and when she returned to the bar a short time later, Cole wasn't there. He hasn't been seen since. So, at the end of the day, that does explain it. So that's my miss on that one. So that does explain quite a bit, but yeah, pretty interesting. And Dusty in chat said, "Hey, small towns are more dangerous than big towns," and I think I think he's right. So
I know, like you know what's so awful about some of these missing cases, and I it's like the friends leave the friend. You know what I mean? Like there's
yeah,
always a friend leaving a friend behind, and then
yeah,
you don't see that friend again. Like I wish I could go back and just be like, "Hey, you cannot leave your friends. Like
buddy
when you're
system.
20 or in the 30s, like you don't leave your friends behind. Like don't leave
Yeah,
someone behind. You keep bring them with you." It always just seems like when someone is left behind, something really awful happens, and then you don't see them again.
yeah, yeah. It's
There's a
crazy,
lot of
and you're
missing
right.
pieces like that.
Yeah,
Like I have a friend that I went to treatment with. He's from Fort Smith.
yep,
Went there, went to a house party. Same thing. He hasn't been seen in over a year now. He just had the 1 year anniversary and nobody's talking. And Fort Smith is like smaller than Dawson.
yep.
And it's the same thing. There's an altercation. Unfortunately, he went with somebody and nobody wants to say anything or talk about it. And at this small town, they'll stick together because nobody wants to be a rat.
Yeah. Well, fear is a huge driver. Like
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I'm pretty comfortable in my skin, and I don't know, I don't have a lot of fear, but even in that scenario, I definitely wouldn't want to be the person coming out because you're going to draw a lot of undue attention to yourself, and then people start formulating stuff. So if they think that you're talking to law enforcement, then and if they do get caught, then it becomes your fault, right? And then now you've become that target, right? And nobody
Yeah.
wants that. So interesting, though.
No. And some like obviously, and then plus if you have family and stuff, you got kids, like you don't need that on your shoulders. At
Yeah,
the same time, like you have reason to protect yourself too. Like it would be an awful place to be in, knowing that something awful happened to somebody and you can't say nothing because it might happen to you. Like
yeah,
I don't know. Sometimes I like my perfect little bubble.
yeah. Me too.
I, I'm like I don't even want to go search for it. I don't want to hang out like go out late at night. Like I know my safe place. But
It, it's funny you say that because I got the three big dogs, right? So I'm like, if somebody gets in, because we did have our car stolen, right out of the
right.
garage, and they came into the house. So, at the end of the day, but I leave the dogs inside my room with the door closed. So I'm like, if somebody gets through my three dogs and then gets to me, then they've probably earned it at that point, and then that's just fate, right? But to your point, U.S. is a little bit different because I live in Iowa where there's a stand your ground law and there's no duty to retreat and you can conceal and carry without a permit, right? So any house you walk into, somebody could own a gun. And I know that like a lot of Canadians are anti-guns, but because you see a lot of the gun violence that happens here, but I think it also stops a lot of gun violence and a lot of people from doing things that really they're getting away with in other countries. And that's not to say I'm for or against, but I can see the positives on both sides. But that being said, let's pivot over to the girls. Let's start with Darylyn first, and I'm just gonna open it up with. I really do think that the Highway of Tears goes a lot longer than what that corridor is. I think that all of the northern small towns have had this issue for many years. And keep in mind, Dal, I know you know better than anybody, but this hasn't been recorded well since the late '90s, like even from 60s to the 9, like, I think it was like 65 or 64 to 97, very rarely was indigenous women specifically being recorded properly as getting kidnapped or disappeared, or murdered. So this is, I don't want to say a new phenomenon because I think it's always been happening, but now we're starting to record it and now we're starting to see this more. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that this is a bigger issue Canada wide, or maybe it's a Northern British Columbia thing? Like, what's your take on that?
Personally, like I think it's a racial thing. I
Okay.
think people are very stuck on it's race, right? We're expendable. You say you're an indigenous woman, people kind of treat you differently. Um, Obviously, I don't want to say I hate the word prostitute. I do. I really do not like that word. I don't like describing anybody like that, but that's how I feel that people see indigenous women
Yeah.
is that we're less than and we could be without. Um, I know when there was a missing girl, she was indigenous. She was actually trying to hitchhike to Edmonton. She was recorded on her brother's voicemail, and this man has never been caught. But it's how the police department treated the mom. Like we're kind of going to put it on the back burner. And I feel like when there's an indigenous woman or girl missing, even man, it's put on the back burner. And I was even reading an article today that with indigenous women and girls going missing, and if they're usually, what was it, 80% of them found murdered, like it's homicide, but they're not charged with first degree murder. They're charged with like manslaughter, like the person who did it gets less, like we're less than. It's like, okay, whatever, move on. Like, let's just deal with this case and let it go. Like, forgive it, like forget who it was. And I feel like that's what these girls are being treated like. It's like, okay, the moment you add indigenous to their name, well, we'll do it tomorrow. That's how I feel. And it's
Yeah.
unfortunate.
Yeah. And then
And I
for
think
the,
like,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
oh no, no, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you, like in this case, which was weird to me, is I remember when Darylyn went missing. Some of the friends that I have, posted that right away, and what was odd was, what is it, 7 months? My math might be off here, but they're related. 7 months later, Renee goes missing. Is that a coincidence, or is there something bigger going on there? And I'm not talking conspiracy, but I'm talking, um, kind of weird. And No Contact said that voicemail was spine chilling, by the way. But do you think there's something related there, or do you just think that they just happen to both be indigenous and related, but they're two separate incidences?
No, I think they're probably the same, like because 100%, like especially being in a small town and you're hanging around with the same type of people, maybe you know something,
Yeah.
you know? Or maybe, you're going out because didn't Darylyn, she went out, wasn't she? She was at the same nightclub and then was seen at the gas station
Well,
the
Renee, that
next
was
day.
Renee. That was Renee. That was
Oh,
at
that
the
was Renee.
same.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yep. Nope.
But
But she's Darylyn's cousin. So Darylyn was the first one because she went missing on March
oh,
15th, and then
right. She
Renee,
just had
yeah, her cousin ended up going missing, in December, right? So essentially like December 2nd. But I've got it up on my screen for people to read as well. But that's the thing that got me really interested in this because I was like, you know, obviously conspiracies go through my head as a true crime. I don't know what do
and
they
I
call?
think if it has to do with like something with the highway of tears, like obviously, first thing with the moment you think of highway of tears, you think truck driver.
Yeah,
Like it's a truck driver for
yeah,
sure. Truck driver, somebody has to, especially with the span of missing women from Prince Rupert to Prince Rupert, or sorry, Prince George to Prince Rupert. It's like insane.
yeah,
But it's just not always Indigenous women. Like a lot of missing girls,
yeah,
and
for
it's
sure.
odd that how come one, how is this happening?
Yeah.
Two, like who's doing it? Like how can you go that long doing this? But at the same time, it being an oil town, it being a very high crime town, might think, you're going to go out with somebody, you might think, okay, well, they seem cool, you're partying, you're having fun, you're not thinking clearly. Like, who knows?
Yeah.
Right? Could be
It,
anybody.
it could, and it kind of reminds me of that movie. Um, what was it called? Um, Wind River, where they weren't oil workers, but they were basically security, and you had the indigenous girl that ends up running away, and her boyfriend who also worked with them ends up getting killed or whatever. Obviously, that's a movie, but when I was thinking about this one, a couple of things crossed my mind. Like, is it the same person that took both of the girls at separate times? Was it somebody they knew? Because that's a real possibility. Was Renee onto something and somebody knew that as well? Because if you see her in the gas station through the footage, she doesn't look like she's in distress. She looks like a typical person that's going out. I don't know how many times I've been, in and around a gas station in Dawson Creek. Usually it's a 7-Eleven, but things have changed since I lived there. But, after going to the bar or even in Grand Prairie, coming back, spending some time at 7-Eleven, seeing people, just excited to see them, and then just to disappear, I started thinking in my head, like, is there something bigger with this, right? Because I think it's bigger than what people think already, because your point is, with the whole Highway of Tears, I just think they haven't been recording it right from Prince George on all the way through, like Dawson, Grand Prairie, Fort St. John, Chetwynd, and all those areas in and around those towns. I think there's more, and I think that at the end of the day, we'll probably hear more about it in the future. But I there's got to be, right? Like, there's no way that those small towns were recording things right either. And this one to me was just odd that they were related, and that absolutely could be a coincidence, but I don't think so.
I don't think so, because I'm sorry. Like, if I was from a small town and I had, say, for instance, Tim, something happened to you, guess
Yep.
what? I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna dig. I'm not gonna dig, but I'm gonna kind of, what happened? I will put myself in that situation, stupidly not thinking that something would happen to me, but I would ask questions. And then all of a sudden, asking questions, you become a threat. So that's a family member. And, they want to know what happened to their family member. And now, unfortunately, another family member went missing too. So, what is happening in that town? Like, people want answers. Obviously, um, if she was looking, she found something,
Yeah.
or she clued into what was going on, right? Which is unfortunate, because now we don't know where she's at.
Yep.
And no offense, it is very easy up there to hide something, hide someone, right?
Unfortunately, you're 100%
It
right,
is.
and like I said before, I saw a lot of bad things. When I say bad, I never saw murder, right? I never saw people go missing, um, but I saw a lot of bad things to most normal people. Once I got out of Dawson, I was like, oh, normal people don't go to the bar and fight every night. Normal people don't go to parties and watch 17 fights, and most normal people, but that's just the way of life out there. And again, the people there are really good. Like, there's a lot of really good people. There's a lot of friends that I miss, and to be quite honest, that's probably where I learned about loyalty. Was a lot of the people in Dawson Creek, because there's some very, very loyal people in Dawson Creek. Um,
Yeah.
but that doesn't stop a lot of the stuff, and I think follow the crowd, and I think everybody's just trying to survive, and that's a big thing, right? So, for me, I'm like, the Highway of Tears should be extended to there. And then you said it best, there's been a lot of murders and a lot of things been going down. I mean, you type up Dawson Creek, British Columbia, and you get all of these cases that go back, and most of them, if you look at them, started like 2005 and on. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And the other crazy part about that is that's kind of the same time where natural gas was really hitting into that area. And then they had kind of like this natural gas oil boom. And there was a lot of people coming from the outside. And I think that was bringing in a lot of riffraff. And then on top of that, you hear a lot about gangs, and I'm not going to name any gangs on here, but, you hear a lot about gangs being in the area, gangs that I had never heard making it that far north that, are, to your point, getting into shootouts and shooting people
Yeah.
at hotels and things like that. Now you've got, city council and a mayor that's trying to clean this up. longtime citizens, and then the citizens are super frustrated because they're seeing this and knowing that you can't talk, and in some cases, you're just not getting into it, so you don't want to hear about it, so you're not learning. But for these two girls and Cole Hosack and many others, their families, this has got to be super frustrating, because in a small town, you would think it would be a lot easier to figure out what happened, right?
Right.
Nobody saw anything, like nothing. These three people, nobody saw anything. And to your point, it could have been a truck driver driving through, three different truck drivers for that fact. But I don't know if that's feasible. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I know with the oil and gas, like obviously there's a lot of weirdos out there. Like I've
That's
had my
fair.
fair share of run-ins working in camps and stuff. Like there was like one time like I woke up and there was someone in my room. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like,
Yeah.
but like people just don't have no self-awareness. And unfortunately, if you are going to be even in those situations, like you're expendable to them too. Like they don't care who you are. Like, no offense, they think that they have money, they can do what they wish. Do I think someone is doing like that in oil and gas? Do I think they would push that boundary of, you know, murdering somebody or doing something awful to somebody? Yeah, I think anybody really has that potential if you think that you can get away from it. And if you have that mentality, yeah, you could definitely hurt somebody. Who it might be, they probably definitely blend in. Or there's somebody who they're so scared nobody wants to come forward and say anything. Like I
No.
literally just pulled up another article with Dawson Creek and there was two people murdered last year.
Yeah.
When was this? Oh, January 18th, 2023, two people. It's just like, and it's just crazy what you pull
Yeah.
up about this now. It's nuts.
Well, and if you add in like the drug overdoses that have been happening since the early 2000s, there's a lot of death that wasn't there prior, when I was growing up. Again, there was still a lot of drugs, a lot of fighting. I wouldn't say a lot of crime. I mean, a lot of like petty crimes, like property crimes, dirt bikes go missing, bikes, things like that. But I never walked down the street in Dawson and ever felt unsafe. As a matter of fact, I spent a lot of my days, especially in high school, on rollerblades with friends,
Right?
and we'd go
Yeah.
all over town. And never did we ever feel unsafe. Like we would run into bullies every now and again, but never did we ever feel like, we have to be scared of this group, or we have to be scared of these people, or we'd always run into someone we may not like or may not like us, and a lot of times that might end in an altercation, but a lot of times it would end in just kind of talk back and forth. But I never felt unsafe, and I walked to school for many years. Like I said, I rollerbladed a long time. I was a skater for a long time. And again, there was a lot of good people in Dawson too. I will say there was a lot of tough people in Dawson. I've never been in a town where I've met so many tough people, bar none. There was a lot of tough people, both female and males there, right, from all the fighting. But now I'm looking at this and I'm like, this is really scary. And for you folks that are out there, if you're watching this podcast, either on Dallas's side or mine, if you're in and around the area and you've heard anything, make sure you reach out to the Dawson Creek RCMP. Or at least if reach out to the families. If you know something, or if you heard even a rumor, right? And be upfront, like, hey, I heard this rumor, but that could give a lead. Because at the end of the day, I know as a parent, I have a daughter and I have a son. And if either one of them went missing, I would never get closure until I knew what happened, right? And I know that they're going
Oh,
to be putting the pieces together forever, but just that feeling would be really bad, right? Like, how would you feel, Dal?
if I never knew what would happen, like to my kids or to a family
Yeah,
member,
yeah,
oh, I no, it, I don't know. It would probably crumble me for life because you go through so many stages of grief, and I think the kids that would kill me.
yeah,
That would just destroy me. I would have a hard time moving on. That's the thing, like very hard time, especially not knowing. Yeah.
yeah,
Like I don't wish that upon anybody. Not knowing where a loved one is. Like I don't care where you are in life, but when you don't know and you just like are just going to go through life empty, like you're missing your soul, like, especially when it comes to your kids.
yeah. And I think we're seeing that with Julie Hosack, with the way that she
Yeah. Oh,
posts. It's heartbreaking. And she's just looking for some answers, right? I mean, ultimately, he's somewhere, right? Ultimately, Darylyn is somewhere. Ultimately, Renee is somewhere. And these families do need their closure, and that's what scares me. Like I look at when we were kids, right? What did our parents do? Turn the water hose on so you had something to drink throughout the day, and tell you to go play in traffic until it's dark. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And we could do that, and we wouldn't disappear, and we never had to worry. And bad
yeah,
things happened back then too, right? But not like it is today, where you're a full-grown adult going to a bar and you can't shy away from an altercation and then disappear. Like that is absolute insanity.
yeah. Like I definitely have a different outlook on Dawson Creek. That's for sure. It's not definitely a place I want to go at all or go up there.
Yeah.
Like I thought it was just like because back in the day when I worked out in camps, like you thought it was fine, right? Now
Yeah.
I never would. There's just like a post. What day is it? Oh, today. There's a man wanted in Dawson Creek. He has failed to show for court. His name is Ben Tudgett.
Yeah, yeah, yep. I saw that too. He's been
Yeah,
he's been in the docket a few times, to be honest with you.
right.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know him
There's
personally,
no
but yeah,
obviously I it's just the stuff that you are finding like when you're looking at this up like I would google it and I would yeah take a good interest in Dawson Creek because for it being so small it's you got to figure that out quick obviously because that's a lot of crime unless I'm just oblivious to what happens in Edmonton.
well, and that's fair. I mean, I don't think you are at all, because even in the town, like I live in a bigger city. I'm not in a city like Chicago, but I'm outside of Chicago a couple hours, and I think we have 350 or 400,000 people here. And I actually look like there's a website that's called Scott County Inmate. And if you just Google that, you can see by day on this side of the river, because there's two sides to the river. There's the Illinois side, the Iowa side. I live on the Iowa side. You can see the two towns on the Iowa side, everybody that's been arrested for the day. And then you can see their crimes. And most of the stuff that I see is like DWI, petty theft or theft in the fifth degree, all the way up to the third degree. Every now and again, I'll see like home invasions. I saw a murder for the first time, I think, 2 months ago, but I'm not seeing that daily like I'm seeing it here. Not that it's happening daily in Dawson, but in a small town like that, if you have 7 murders in a year, that's a lot for a town of
That's a lot.
13,000. Yeah, because you take
Yeah for
what's Edmonton right now, 1.3 mil, maybe.
yeah somewhere up there and how many have we had.
So if you put that in perspective, they would have to be at about 700 to be right on pace with Dawson ish. And that includes all the surrounding areas for anybody that's on here. I know Edmonton itself is not 1.3, but I think with all the surrounding areas, you're around there.
We have 11 so far, 11 murders in our city so far, unfortunately. Last
Yeah.
year there was 43.
Okay. So case in point.
But that's still, it's still, it's not safe, but at the same time, when you go looking for trouble, you're going to find it. But you know what? When you look at some of this stuff, it's actually pretty mind blowing that some of the murders that are happening are actually from are happening to innocent people in the crossfire
Yeah.
with police and stuff. I looked it up one time. I'm like, it was just unfortunate. Like, people are getting shot through their windows. The one man was like shot in a business by accident. Unfortunately, they count that stuff, but like obviously that still matters. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's just with it being such a small town, like you're just you want to go outside and walk your dog. You want to go out and play in your yard. You want to have your kids go to school and be safe. You want to go to work and make it home. You want to be able to go out and have a drink with your friends and not have, you know, gunfire outside your home, right?
Yeah.
Like small towns are supposed to be safe. And unfortunately, like I keep saying, like this town is not good. It's unfortunate because it's such a pretty town.
Yeah, it really is. I enjoyed living there. There's so much stuff to do outside of town too. Like you've got the
Yeah.
underwater springs, you got Swan Lake, you've got Kiskatna River, you've got Moberly Lake, which is probably closer to Chetwynd, but still, good hour and a half away. It's just really beautiful, right? A lot of trails to walk on, four wheel. Like I was a very active individual. I like grandma would always say, you're never bored. You're always doing something. And I'm like, well, there's just always something to do. You know what I mean? And now I feel like what are kids doing there now, and all those changes. It's scary, and I feel for the people I grew up with because they've got kids, and I always, and I don't want to encroach on them and say, hi, how are you feeling? But it looks like, at least if I put myself in their shoes, it would wear on me. So that's just some of the things that I was kind of thinking about. So um,
Yeah, and
let's
also with
go ahead.
I just wanted to mention also like what they're having on the 5th of May. Everybody is like they want to support the missing Indigenous women and girls, that everyone is like to wear red dresses.
Yeah.
So I see that in that article just to bring awareness. Obviously, there's not enough of it, or um, no, it's just sad that it's not talked about more.
Yeah.
And we're still human.
Yeah.
And these girls, like I think they have every right. Same with Cole, have every right to be found. I think someone should obviously come forward, even if you call Crime Stoppers. Like they can't release who said it,
Yeah.
unless I'm totally naive when it comes to that test stuff. But if somebody could honestly just come forward or just say what even if it's in an email made up, something, just so these families can get some closure on where their loved ones are. You keep looking at their pictures and they're all beautiful, and it's like, whatever happened to you? Like, you almost want to go where they were, like you want to be where that what happened in that moment, like what's going on.
Yeah. And to be fair, I'd be naive too because I haven't never called Crime Stoppers, so I don't know exactly what the process is. So if anybody does know, leave a comment down so we know exactly what that process looks like. But Dal, I kind of want to transition a little bit. What case are we doing next week? And do you have anything to preface that case a bit to get people excited about it?
So I had looked up this case. Oh my goodness, sorry, I just had it on my computer. Here we go. Okay, the disappearance of Brian Schaefer. He was a medical student. Once again, went out with friends. Um, right, he was in Hawaii or Idaho State. That's why I picked it, because that's
Yeah.
where you're from, to me. And then he went out with friends celebrating the beginning of. Sorry, I'm just reading it. The beginning of spring break. He was later separated from them, and nobody's seen him since. So my thought with all of this is, if you're out in a busy town, there's cameras everywhere. Why can't like why don't we know where you went, or where are you, or who you were with, or because he still hasn't been found, and this was back when 2006.
Yeah. It's a crazy story. I actually did a video that's on my YouTube right now, and I'm excited to cover this one again because I have tried to go through all the conspiracy theories and what could have happened. Everything from he's still stuck in the wall to people carried him out piece by piece because they see him go into the bar on camera. They never see him come out. There's talk that he might have went out through the back, but there's some cameras and stuff out back. So I think this is going to be an exciting one, and I know, Dallas, you were excited to hit it. But for all the people that are here right now, you see the puppies in the background. Finally, the crime-fighting Doberman decided that he was going to get on camera and kind of fall asleep there on the bed. But yeah, but I appreciate everybody jumping on my side. Again, I'm Tim Solberg, host of True Crime with a K. Come check out the channel. You'll see some of the videos that I do. I do some missing people, and then I do some current cases. Lately, I'm just sticking to live streams. Got a lot of stuff going on with work. So I've been working with Dallas, which has been a lot of fun. And then I'm just going to turn it over to you, Dallas, to carry us out.
Okay. Well, I just want to say
Sorry.
thanks to everyone for joining us again, for being on episode 3. I love that this is how I'm spending my Friday night. It really brings some joy, actually doing something new in my life. Um, If Yeah, so next Friday we'll also be covering this case of Brian Schaefer, the disappearance his disappearance back in 2006, at 8:30 again. Would love everyone to join us, and yeah, happy to be here. So
All right,
good night.
everybody have a wonderful weekend. Good night. Sorry for coughing. We will